On a bright and sunny afternoon, the world seemed perfect for Maya Johnson. She was a hard-working woman in her early 30s who had built a successful career as an entrepreneur. Despite her busy schedule, she always made time to relax and enjoy life's simple pleasures. That day, she decided to visit the park near her office. It was one of her favorite spots, a place where she could escape the noise of the city and find peace under the shade of tall trees. Maya carried her laptop with her, planning to catch up on some work while enjoying the fresh air. The park was alive with activity. Families were having picnics. Children laughed as they chased each other around, and joggers moved steadily along the paths. Maya found a quiet bench near a cluster of flowering bushes. She sat down, opened her laptop, and began typing away, completely absorbed in her task. What Maya didn't realize at that moment was that this ordinary day would soon turn into something extraordinary, and not in a good way. Unbeknownst to most people, including the park visitors that day, Maya owned the entire block surrounding the park. Years earlier, she had purchased the land and all the buildings nearby as part of her vision to revitalize the neighborhood. The park itself was technically private property, though it had always been open to the public. Maya believed strongly in giving back to her community, so she never restricted access to the green space. To her, it was a gift she wanted everyone to enjoy. As Maya worked, 2 police officers approached her. They wore dark uniforms and sunglasses, their expressions stern and unsmiling. One of them stopped a few feet away from her bench while the other stood slightly behind him, arms crossed. "Ma'am," the first officer said loudly, interrupting her concentration. "You can't sit here. This is private property." Maya looked up startled, her brow furrowed in confusion. "I'm sorry," she asked politely. "Did I hear you correctly? You're telling me I can't sit here?" The officer nodded firmly. "That's right, you need to leave immediately," he replied, his tone sharp and impatient. Maya blinked, trying to process what was happening. She glanced around at the other people in the park. Families lounging on blankets, couples walking hand in hand, kids playing tag. No one else seemed to be getting told to leave. Why was she being singled out? "I don't understand," Maya said slowly, keeping her voice calm despite the rising tension in the air. "This is a public park. People come here every day. Why am I being asked to leave?" The second officer stepped forward now, his jaw tightening. "Look, ma'am, we don't have time for this. Just pack up your stuff and go somewhere else." Maya felt a knot forming in her stomach. Something about their attitude felt off. Their words were polite enough, but their tone carried an edge of hostility. She noticed how they avoided making eye contact with her, their body language rigid and dismissive. "Is there a specific reason I'm being asked to leave?" Maya pressed, still refusing to budge. "Am I breaking any rules? Because if I am, I'd like to know what they are." The first officer sighed dramatically as if dealing with someone unreasonable. "Let's cut to the chase, okay? You're causing a disturbance. Now, either you leave voluntarily, or we'll have to escort you out." "A disturbance?" Maya almost laughed out loud. She hadn't raised her voice once, nor had she done anything remotely disruptive. All she was doing was sitting quietly on a bench, minding her own business. Yet here these 2 men were, accusing her of being a problem simply because she existed in their line of sight. It wasn't until that moment that Maya realized what was really going on. These officers weren't concerned about rules or disturbances. They were targeting her because of the color of her skin. As a black woman, she had encountered subtle forms of discrimination before. Comments disguised as jokes, suspicious glances in stores, but nothing quite as blatant as this. Her heart raced, and her hands trembled slightly as she closed her laptop and placed it carefully into her bag. She didn't want to escalate the situation further, especially since she was outnumbered and alone. But inside, she burned with anger and frustration. How dare they treat her this way? How dare they assume she didn't belong here? As Maya stood up to leave, she caught the gaze of a young mother sitting nearby with her toddler. The woman gave her a sympathetic look, silently acknowledging the injustice unfolding before her eyes. Other park-goers glanced curiously at the scene, unsure of what to do or say. Some whispered among themselves while others pretended not to notice. Walking away from the bench, Maya couldn't help but feel humiliated. She had done nothing wrong, yet she was being forced to leave a place she loved, a place she owned. The irony of the situation stung deeply. If only those officers knew the truth about who she was, they might have thought twice before confronting her. But Maya wasn't ready to reveal her identity, not yet. She needed time to process what had happened and figure out her next move. By the time she reached her car, parked just outside the park gates, Maya's mind was racing. She replayed the incident over and over again, dissecting every word and action. One thing was clear. She couldn't let this slide. This wasn't just about her, it was about standing up against the kind of prejudice that too often went unchecked. Little did the officers know, their actions that day would set off a chain reaction they could never have anticipated. For Maya Johnson, this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge not only her resolve but also the systems designed to protect or oppress people like her. And when the truth finally came out, it would change everything. For better or worse. Maya sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel tightly as tears welled up in her eyes. The encounter with the officers replayed in her mind like a broken record. She felt a mix of emotions, anger, humiliation, and disbelief. How could this happen? She had done nothing wrong, yet she was treated like a criminal simply because of the color of her skin. For a moment, Maya considered letting it go. After all, she had dealt with similar situations before, brushing them off as minor inconveniences. But something inside her refused to stay silent this time. This wasn't just about her. It was about every black person who had been unfairly targeted or mistreated because of their race. It was about sending a message that such behavior would not be tolerated, not in her community, and certainly not by those sworn to protect it. Determined to take action, Maya drove straight to her office. Her assistant noticed the tension on her face as soon as she walked in. "Are you okay, Maya?" she asked hesitantly. Maya forced a small smile. "I'll be fine," she replied. "But I need to talk to Marcus." Marcus Reed was Maya's lawyer and one of her closest confidants. He had helped her navigate legal challenges in the past, from property disputes to business contracts. If anyone could guide her through this mess, it was him. She picked up her phone and dialed his number. "Marcus, I need your help," Maya said when he answered. Her voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. Marcus immediately sensed the urgency. "What's going on?" he asked. Maya took a deep breath and recounted the entire incident, the officers' accusations, their dismissive tone, and the blatant racism she had experienced. By the time she finished, Marcus was furious. "This is unacceptable," he said, firmly. "We can file a formal complaint against those officers, and trust me, we'll make sure they pay for what they've done." Maya nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see her. "I want more than just a complaint," she said. "I want to expose this kind of behavior. People need to know what's really happening." Marcus agreed. "We'll start by gathering evidence," he said. "Witness statements, photos, anything that can support your case. Then we'll decide our next steps." With Marcus's guidance, Maya began reaching out to people who had been at the park that day. She remembered seeing a young mother with her child sitting nearby during the confrontation. Perhaps she had witnessed enough to confirm Maya's account. The woman, whose name was Lisa, was eager to help. "I saw everything," Lisa told Maya over the phone. "Those officers were completely out of line. You didn't deserve to be treated that way." Maya thanked her and asked if she'd be willing to provide a written statement. Lisa agreed without hesitation. Other witnesses came forward as well, each recounting how shocked they were by the officers' behavior. One man even mentioned that he had recorded part of the interaction on his phone. Armed with this new information, Maya felt a renewed sense of determination. But she knew that filing a complaint and collecting evidence wouldn't be enough to bring about real change. She needed to amplify her voice to ensure that her story reached as many people as possible. That's when she thought of Sarah Collins, a journalist friend known for her work on social justice issues. Sarah had interviewed Maya several times. In the past, often highlighting her efforts to uplift underserved communities. If anyone could turn this personal injustice into a larger conversation, it was Sarah. Maya called Sarah and explained the situation. "This isn't just about me," Maya emphasized. "It's about exposing systemic racism within law enforcement. I want people to understand how deeply rooted this problem is." Sarah listened intently, her journalistic instincts kicking in. "You're right," she said. "This is a story that needs to be told. Let me do some digging and we'll get it out there." Over the next few days, Sarah worked tirelessly to piece together the narrative. She spoke to witnesses, reviewed footage, and researched the officers' backgrounds. What she uncovered was startling. Both officers had a history of complaints filed against them, many involving allegations of racial profiling and excessive force. None of these complaints had resulted in disciplinary action, which only fueled Sarah's determination to hold them accountable. Meanwhile, Maya struggled with the emotional toll of reliving the incident. At night, she lay awake, replaying the officers' words in her head. Their dismissive tone haunted her. She wondered how many others had been treated the same way, and how many had suffered in silence because they lacked the resources or platform. To fight back, to cope, Maya leaned on her support system. Her family reminded her of her strength and resilience. Her friends encouraged her to channel her anger into positive action. Even strangers reached out after hearing whispers of her ordeal, offering words of encouragement and solidarity. One evening, as Maya scrolled through social media, she stumbled upon a post shared by Lisa, the young mother from the park. In the caption, Lisa described witnessing the confrontation and expressed outrage over the officer's behavior. The post had already garnered hundreds of likes and comments, with many people praising Lisa for speaking up. Inspired, Maya decided to share her own experience online. She wrote a heartfelt post detailing the events of that day and calling for accountability. Within hours, her words resonated with thousands of people. Comments poured in, ranging from expressions of support to personal stories of discrimination. Some users urged Maya to take legal action, while others offered advice on navigating the system. The overwhelming response gave Maya hope. For the first time since the incident, she felt less alone. She realized that her story had struck a chord with countless individuals who had faced similar injustices. Together, they formed a collective voice demanding change. As the days passed, Maya and Marcus finalized the formal complaint against the officers. They included witness statements, video footage, and documentation of the officers' prior misconduct. The packet was thorough and compelling, a damning indictment of the systemic racism embedded within law enforcement. Before submitting the complaint, Maya took a moment to reflect. She thought about the young mother, the joggers, the children, playing in the park, all innocent bystanders who had unknowingly become part of her journey. She thought about the officers, oblivious to the fact that they had crossed paths with someone powerful enough to challenge their actions. And then she thought about herself, not as a victim, but as a catalyst for change. This incident had shaken her, but it had also awakened a fire within her. She was no longer just Maya Johnson, successful entrepreneur and philanthropist. She was now a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for those fighting against prejudice and inequality. When the complaint was finally filed, Maya felt a surge of relief. The ball was now in motion and there was no turning back. Whatever happened next, she was ready. The officers may have underestimated her, but they were about to learn a valuable lesson. You don't mess with someone who owns the very ground. You stand on, or with someone determined to fight for justice. Little did they know, their actions had ignited a movement, one that would shine a light on the dark corners of society and inspire others to stand up against injustice. For Maya, this was more than a personal battle. It was a chance to rewrite the narrative, to turn pain into purpose, and to remind the world that true power lies in unity and resilience. The days following the filing of the formal complaint were a whirlwind for Maya Johnson. She knew that standing up against powerful institutions like the police department wouldn't be easy, but she also understood the importance of her fight. This wasn't just about seeking justice for herself. It was about exposing a system that allowed racism and discrimination to thrive unchecked. With every step forward, Maya felt more determined to make sure her voice, and the voices of countless others, was heard loud and clear. After submitting the complaint, Maya met with Marcus Reed, her lawyer, to discuss their strategy. "This is going to get messy," Marcus warned her during one of their meetings. "These officers will try to defend themselves and they'll likely have the backing of their department, but we've got strong evidence on our side." Maya nodded firmly. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," she said. "If this is what it takes to bring attention to the issue, then so be it." Marcus outlined the next steps. First, they would wait for the police department to respond to the complaint. In the meantime, they would continue gathering support from the community. Social media had already played a significant role in spreading awareness, but Marcus suggested taking things further. "We need to organize," he told Maya. "Rallies, protests, public forums, anything that keeps the conversation alive." Maya agreed. She reached out to local activists and organizations that focused on racial justice. One of them, a group called Unity Forward, had been advocating for police reform for years. When Maya explained her situation, they immediately offered their full support. "We've seen cases like yours before," said Tasha Miller, the leader of Unity Forward. "But your story has a unique angle. The fact that you own the property adds another layer of injustice. People are outraged, and we can use that energy to push for real change." Together, Maya and Tasha began planning a series of events aimed at raising awareness and demanding accountability. The first event was a peaceful protest outside the police station, where the two officers worked. Flyers were distributed throughout the neighborhood, and social media buzzed with updates. By the day of the protest, hundreds of people showed up holding signs with messages like "End police racism" and "Justice for Maya." Standing among the crowd, Maya felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she was deeply moved by the outpouring of support. On the other hand, she couldn't ignore the irony of the situation. Here she was, protesting against the very institution, meant to protect her, all while owning the land beneath their feet. It was almost surreal. As the protest gained momentum, journalists from local news outlets arrived to cover the story. Sarah Collins, Maya's journalist friend, was front and center, microphone in hand. She interviewed protesters, capturing their anger and frustration. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stepped up to address the crowd. "I didn't ask for this fight," Maya began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "All I wanted was to enjoy a quiet afternoon in the park, a place I love and happen to own. Instead, I was treated like I didn't belong there, like my presence was somehow threatening. And I'm not alone. Every day, Black men, women, and children face similar injustices simply because of the color of their skin." Her words resonated deeply with the audience. Cheers erupted as she continued. "This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. We deserve to live in a world where we're treated with dignity and respect. A world where no one has to fear being targeted because of who they are. That's why we're here today. To say enough is enough." The protest made headlines across the city. News stations aired clips of Maya's speech, highlighting the absurdity of the incident. Commentators debated whether the officers' actions constituted misconduct or outright racism. Meanwhile, online discussions exploded, with hashtags like "Justice for Maya" trending nationally. Back at her office, Maya monitored the growing movement with a mixture of pride and apprehension. While she was grateful for the support, she knew the battle was far from over. The police department had yet to issue a formal response, and rumors swirled about potential retaliation against those involved in the case. To counteract these fears, Maya held a press conference alongside Marcus and Tasha. They reassured the public that they were prepared for any outcome. "We're not backing down," Maya declared. "No matter what happens, we will continue fighting for justice, not just for me but for everyone affected by systemic racism." Behind the scenes, Maya worked tirelessly to keep the momentum going. She collaborated with Unity Forward to host workshops on implicit bias and cultural sensitivity, inviting members of the community and even some law enforcement officials to attend. Though participation from police officers was minimal, Maya saw it as a small victory. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but planting seeds of understanding was a crucial first step. During this time, Maya also received messages of encouragement from unexpected places. Business associates, clients, and even strangers reached out to express their admiration for her courage. One letter in particular stood out. It came from an elderly woman named Mrs. Harper, who lived in one of the buildings Maya owned. "Dear Ms. Johnson," the letter read, "I've watched you transform this neighborhood into something beautiful. You've given us hope and pride. Please don't let those officers dim your light. Keep shining because the world needs more people like you." Tears streamed down Maya's face as she read the heartfelt note. It reminded her why she had started this journey in the first place. Not for recognition or revenge, but to create a better future for everyone. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Some critics dismissed the movement as overly dramatic or politically motivated. Others accused Maya of exaggerating the incident to gain publicity. But she refused to engage with negativity. Instead, she focused on the bigger picture, dismantling the systems that perpetuated racism and inequality. One evening, as Maya sat in her living room reviewing plans for an upcoming forum, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Sarah Collins. Attached was a draft of the article she had been working on, a detailed expose titled, "Racist Cops Target Black Woman Who Owns the Park." Maya skimmed through the piece, her heart swelling with gratitude. Sarah had done an incredible job weaving together witness accounts, historical context, and Maya's personal narrative. The article ended with a powerful call to action, urging readers to demand accountability and support initiatives aimed at reforming law enforcement practices. "This is it," Maya whispered to herself. The article would go live the next morning, reaching thousands, if not millions, of people. It was the culmination of weeks of hard work, resilience, and determination. As she turned off her laptop and prepared for bed, Maya reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day in the park. What began as a humiliating encounter had transformed into a catalyst for change. She had gone from feeling powerless to becoming a symbol of strength and resistance. But Maya knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with obstacles and setbacks, yet she faced it with unwavering resolve. For every person who doubted her, there were dozens more who believed in her cause, and for every critic who tried to silence her, there were countless supporters amplifying her message. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya envisioned a brighter future, a world where no one had to endure the kind of treatment she had faced. Until that vision became reality, she vowed to keep pushing forward, using her platform to inspire others and drive meaningful change. Little did she know, the impact of her actions was about to ripple far beyond the confines of her neighborhood. Across the country, people were watching, listening, and preparing to join the fight. The stage was set for a reckoning, one that would challenge not only the officers involved, but also the very foundations of systemic racism itself. The morning the article titled, "Racist Cops Target Black Woman Who Owns the Park" hit the newsstands, it felt like a bomb had gone off. Sarah Collins's expose was published in one of the city's largest newspapers and quickly spread online, sparking outrage across social media platforms. By noon, the story had gone viral, trending not just locally but nationally. People were shocked and furious. At first glance, the headline seemed almost unbelievable. How could two police officers kick someone out of a park without realizing she owned the entire block? But as readers delved into the details, witness accounts, video footage, and Maya Johnson's own words, it became clear that this wasn't some exaggerated tale. It was real, raw, and infuriating. The article painted a vivid picture of what had happened that day in the park. It highlighted the dismissive tone of the officers, their refusal to listen to Maya's explanations, and the blatant racial undertones of their actions. Sarah included quotes from witnesses who described how unfairly Maya had been treated. One woman said, "It was obvious they wouldn't have spoken to her that way if she were white." Another man added, She was calm and polite the whole time, but they acted like she was causing trouble. What made the story even more compelling was the revelation about Maya's ownership of the property. Readers learned that she wasn't just a random visitor. She was the owner of the park and several surrounding buildings. This twist added a layer of absurdity to the situation, making it impossible to ignore. Comments sections on websites lit up with reactions ranging from disbelief to anger. "This is insane," one commenter wrote. "They literally kicked her out of her own park." Another added, "This is exactly why we need police reform. Racism like this has no place in law enforcement." As the story gained traction, local TV stations picked it up, airing segments during primetime broadcasts. Journalists interviewed Maya, who remained composed despite the mounting attention. When asked how she felt about the incident, she responded, with grace and conviction. "It's frustrating and hurtful to be treated this way," Maya said in one interview. "But I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for everyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong because of the color of their skin. We deserve better than this." Her words resonated deeply with viewers. Many saw themselves in her story, recalling moments when they too had faced discrimination. Others admired her courage and determination to turn a painful experience into an opportunity for change. Meanwhile, the officers involved scrambled to defend themselves. In a hastily organized press conference, they claimed ignorance of Maya's ownership and insisted they were simply enforcing rules. "We didn't know she owned the property," one officer said, looking uncomfortable under the glare of cameras. "If we had known, things might have been different." But their excuses fell flat. Videos surfaced online showing similar incidents where the same officers had targeted people of color. Social media users dug deeper, uncovering past complaints filed against them. Each revelation only fueled more criticism and calls for accountability. Public pressure mounted rapidly. Protesters gathered outside the police station again, holding signs and chanting slogans. Local politicians joined the chorus, demanding an investigation into systemic racism within the department. Even national figures weighed in, calling for reforms to address discriminatory practices in law enforcement. For Maya, the overwhelming response was both empowering and humbling. She never imagined her personal ordeal would spark such widespread outrage and mobilization, yet she also knew the fight was far from over. While the spotlight was on her case, she wanted to ensure it led to lasting change, not just temporary headlines. To keep the momentum going, Maya partnered with Unity Forward to organize a town hall meeting. The event brought together community members, activists, and representatives from the police department to discuss issues of racial bias and accountability. Hundreds of people attended, filling the auditorium to capacity. During the meeting, Maya took the stage to share her vision for the future. "This isn't about punishing individuals," she said, addressing the crowd. "It's about creating a system where everyone feels safe and respected. That starts with acknowledging the problem and working together to fix it." Her speech earned a standing ovation. Attendees praised her for using her platform to advocate for broader change rather than seeking revenge. Inspired by her leadership, many pledged to continue supporting initiatives aimed at improving relations between law enforcement and marginalized communities. In addition to organizing events, Maya worked closely with Sarah Collins to amplify the message. They collaborated on follow-up articles exploring related topics such as implicit bias training for police officers and strategies for holding institutions accountable. These pieces kept the conversation alive, ensuring that the issue remained front and center in public discourse. Despite the progress, Maya faced challenges along the way. Some critics dismissed her efforts as performative activism, accusing her of exploiting the situation for attention. Others questioned whether her wealth and influence gave her an unfair advantage in pursuing justice. Maya acknowledged these concerns but refused to let them derail her mission. "Yes, I have resources that others may not," she admitted in an interview. "But that doesn't mean I shouldn't use them to help those who can't fight back. My goal is to create a level playing field so everyone has a fair shot at justice." Her honesty and transparency won over skeptics, further solidifying her role as a leader in the movement. As weeks turned into months, Maya became a symbol of resilience and hope. Her story inspired countless individuals to speak out against injustice and demand better from their leaders. Behind the scenes, Maya continued strategizing with Marcus Reed and Tasha Miller. Together, they prepared for the upcoming hearings, where the officers' conduct would be formally reviewed. They knew the process would be long and grueling, but they were ready. Armed with evidence and unwavering determination, they vowed to see it through until the end. By the time the hearings began, public sentiment had shifted dramatically. What started as a single incident in a quiet park had evolved into a nationwide conversation about race, power, and accountability. Maya's courage had ignited a fire that couldn't be extinguished, a fire that burned brightly in the hearts of anyone who believed in equality and fairness. As she sat in the courtroom on the first day of the hearings, Maya reflected on how far she had come since that fateful afternoon. From feeling powerless and humiliated to standing tall as a beacon of change, she had transformed pain into purpose. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. She was no longer fighting alone. The truth had come out, and it had set something powerful in motion. For Maya Johnson, and for everyone watching, the battle for justice was just beginning. The hearings were set to begin, and the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Reporters, activists, and members of the public packed the space, eager to witness what many hoped would be a turning point in the fight against systemic racism. For Maya Johnson, this was more than just a legal proceeding. It was a chance to hold the officers accountable and send a clear message that discrimination would not be tolerated. As she entered the courtroom alongside Marcus Reed, her lawyer, Maya felt a mix of emotions. She was nervous but resolute. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on her. She knew that whatever happened here could have far-reaching implications. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about setting a precedent for how institutions dealt with racism and misconduct. The hearing began with opening statements. Marcus stood confidently before the judge, laying out the case against the two officers. He presented evidence meticulously gathered over weeks, witness testimonies, video footage, and documented complaints against the officers from previous incidents. Each piece painted a damning picture of their behavior, not only in Maya's case but also in their history of targeting people of color. These officers abused their authority, Marcus said firmly, his voice echoing through the room. They treated Ms. Johnson with hostility and disrespect, not because she broke any rules but because of implicit bias and prejudice. Their actions reflect a deeper issue within law enforcement, a culture that allows racism to persist unchecked. When it was Maya's turn to testify, she took a deep breath and stepped up to the stand. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady as she recounted the events of that day in the park. She described how the officers had approached her, accused her without cause, and dismissed her attempts to explain herself. "I didn't understand why I was being singled out," Maya said, her eyes locking onto the jury. "All I was doing was sitting quietly, enjoying my day. But when I looked at their faces, I realized they saw me as a threat simply because of the color of my skin." Her testimony struck a chord with everyone in the room. Even some of the jurors exchanged glances, visibly moved by her words. When asked about the impact of the incident, Maya paused for a moment before responding. "It made me angry, not just for myself, but for everyone who has faced similar treatment," she admitted. "It reminded me that racism isn't something from the past. It's alive today, hiding behind uniforms and badges, and until we confront it head-on, nothing will change." The officers' defense team tried to downplay the accusations, arguing that their clients were simply following protocol. They claimed ignorance of Maya's ownership of the property and insisted there had been no malicious intent. But their arguments fell flat under scrutiny. Video footage showed the dismissive tone and body language they had used with Maya, while prior complaints revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior. By the end of the first day, public opinion was firmly against the officers. Social media erupted with reactions as people followed the proceedings closely. Hashtags like Accountability Now and Justice for Maya trended once again, drawing attention to the broader issues at play. Activists seized the moment to call for reforms urging lawmakers to implement stricter measures to combat racism within law enforcement. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered daily, holding signs and chanting slogans. Unity Forward organized rallies to keep the pressure on the police department and city officials. Tasha Miller addressed the crowds, reminding them of the importance of staying vigilant. "We can't let this fade away after the hearings are over," Tasha said passionately. "This is our chance to demand real change, not just for Maya, but for every person who's ever been mistreated because of their race. Let's make sure their voices are heard." Inside the courtroom, the hearings continued for several days. Witness after witness corroborated Maya's account, describing how the officers had targeted her unfairly. One man recalled seeing the same officers harass another black individual in the park months earlier. A woman testified about filing a complaint after being stopped unnecessarily while walking her dog. Each story added to the mounting evidence against the officers. Finally, after days of deliberation, the verdict was announced. Both officers were found guilty of misconduct and racial profiling. They were immediately placed on administrative leave pending further disciplinary action, which included termination from the force and bans from working in law enforcement again. The decision was met with cheers outside the courthouse. Protesters hugged one another, celebrating a hard-fought victory. Maya emerged from the building, greeted by applause and tears of joy. She raised her hands to quiet the crowd before speaking. "This isn't just my win, it's ours," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Today we sent a message that racism has no place in our communities. But this is only the beginning. We still have work to do to ensure that everyone is treated with dignity and respect." While the outcome brought relief, Maya knew the fight wasn't over. Holding the officers accountable was a crucial step, but systemic racism couldn't be dismantled overnight. To address the root causes of the problem, Maya launched new initiatives aimed at fostering better relationships between law enforcement and marginalized communities. She partnered with local organizations to create cultural sensitivity training programs for police officers. These workshops focused on recognizing implicit bias, understanding privilege, and learning how to interact respectfully with diverse populations. Maya also advocated for policy changes, pushing for greater transparency and accountability within the police department. One of her most impactful projects was the establishment of a community advisory board. Comprised of residents, activists, and law enforcement representatives, the board served as a bridge between the police and the people they served. Its purpose was to review complaints, monitor officer conduct, and recommend reforms to improve trust and communication. Maya's efforts earned widespread praise. Local leaders commended her for turning a painful experience into an opportunity for growth. National figures highlighted her work as a model for addressing systemic racism. Awards and honors poured in, but Maya remained humble, always redirecting attention to the larger cause. Despite the progress, challenges persisted. Some critics dismissed her initiatives as insufficient, arguing that true reform required dismantling the existing system entirely. Others accused her of being too soft on law enforcement. Maya listened to these concerns, but stayed focused on her mission. "Change doesn't happen all at once," she explained during an interview. "It's a process, a series of small steps that lead to bigger transformations. What matters is that we keep moving forward even when it's hard." Her resilience inspired countless others to join the movement. People from different backgrounds and walks of life came together, united by a shared vision of equality and justice. Whether through volunteering, donating, or simply having conversations, they contributed to the growing wave of activism sparked by Maya's courage. As months passed, Maya noticed subtle shifts in her community. Conversations about race and privilege became more common, breaking down barriers that had long divided people. Officers who participated in the training programs reported feeling more equipped to handle difficult situations with empathy and fairness. Residents expressed renewed hope for a brighter future. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment. What started as a humiliating encounter in the park had transformed into a powerful catalyst for change. She had faced adversity head-on, using her platform to uplift others and challenge oppressive systems. But perhaps the greatest reward was knowing that she wasn't alone anymore. From the young mother who witnessed the incident to the activists who rallied behind her, Maya had built a network of allies committed to making the world a better place. Together, they proved that even in the face of injustice, unity and determination could spark meaningful transformation. Little did she know, the ripple effects of her actions would continue spreading far beyond her neighborhood. Across the country, people were taking note, inspired to confront racism in their own communities. Maya's story had ignited a movement, one that showed no signs of slowing down. For now, though, she allowed herself a moment of peace. Standing. In the park she loved so much, Maya watched as families laughed, children played, and joggers passed by. It was a reminder of why she had fought so hard, for a world where everyone could feel safe, valued, and free. Months after the hearings concluded, Maya Johnson stood in the same park where her journey had begun. The sun cast golden rays through the trees, and the air buzzed with laughter and chatter from families enjoying a warm weekend afternoon. It was hard to believe that this peaceful place had once been the site of such an ugly incident. But Maya wasn't here just to reflect. She was here to celebrate. Today marked the culmination of months of hard work and resilience. Maya had organized a community event at the park to honor the progress they'd made and to thank everyone who had supported her along the way. Hundreds of people gathered for the occasion: activists, neighbors, local leaders, and even some police officers who had participated in the cultural sensitivity workshops. Tables were set up with food, music played softly in the background, and colorful banners decorated the area, each bearing messages like "Unity through understanding" and "Bump, together we rise." As Maya addressed the crowd from a small stage, she felt overwhelmed by gratitude. She looked out at the sea of faces, people of all ages, races, and backgrounds, and marveled at how far they had come since that fateful day when two officers had tried to dismiss her as unworthy of belonging. "I never imagined standing here today," Maya began, her voice filled with emotion. "When I was asked to leave this park, I felt humiliated and angry, not just because of what happened to me, but because it reminded me of how many others have faced similar injustices without being able to fight back." She paused, letting her words sink in. The crowd listened intently, their expressions a mix of pride and solidarity. "But something incredible happened," Maya continued. "You all showed up. You spoke up. Together we turned pain into purpose. Today we're not just celebrating accountability. We're celebrating hope, unity, and the power of collective action." Her speech earned thunderous applause. People cheered, clapped, and whistled, their energy electric. For many, this event symbolized more than just closure. It represented a new chapter, a chance to rebuild trust and create a future rooted in fairness and respect. After her speech, Maya joined Tasha Miller, Sarah Collins, and Marcus Reed on stage for a panel discussion. They talked about the challenges they had faced, the lessons they had learned, and the importance of continuing the fight against systemic racism. "We've made progress, but we can't stop now," Tasha emphasized. "This is a marathon, not a sprint. Real change takes time, effort, and persistence." Sarah added, "Stories like Maya's remind us why journalism matters. By shining a light on injustice, we give people the tools to demand better, from their leaders, their institutions, and themselves." Marcus nodded in agreement. "And let's not forget the role of the law. Justice isn't perfect, but it's a powerful tool when wielded correctly. This case proves that holding people accountable sends a strong message." The audience erupted in cheers again, inspired by the panel's words. Many attendees approached Maya afterward to express their admiration and share their own stories of overcoming adversity. Some hugged her tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Others thanked her for giving them the courage to stand up against discrimination in their own lives. For Maya, these interactions reinforced the impact of her journey. What had started as a personal battle had grown into a movement that transcended her individual experience. Her story had become a beacon of hope for countless others, showing them that no matter how daunting the odds, change was possible. Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Maya took a quiet walk around the park. She stopped near the bench where the officers had confronted her months earlier. Sitting down, she closed her eyes and let the sounds of nature wash over her, the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, the distant laughter of children. In that moment, she allowed herself to feel everything she had been too busy to process during the whirlwind of events. The anger, the frustration, the fear, but also the joy, the triumph, and the deep sense of fulfillment. She thought about how much she had grown, not just as an advocate for justice, but as a person. Maya realized that while the fight against racism was far from over, she had planted seeds of change that would continue to grow long after this day. Her initiatives, the cultural sensitivity training programs, the community advisory board, and the ongoing workshops, were laying the groundwork for lasting transformation. And though setbacks would inevitably arise, she believed in the resilience of the human spirit and the power of unity. As she walked back toward the parking lot, Maya noticed a young boy playing with a kite. His mother stood nearby, smiling as he ran across the grass, his laughter ringing out like music. Watching them, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. This park and the entire neighborhood wasn't just hers to own. It was hers to nurture, protect, and share. She climbed into her car and drove home, replaying the day's events in her mind. Despite everything she had endured, she felt optimistic about the road ahead. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Over the following weeks, Maya continued her advocacy work, traveling to other cities to speak at conferences and share her story. She met with lawmakers, educators, and activists, collaborating on strategies to combat racism and promote equality. Her efforts earned national recognition, and she was invited to join boards and committees focused on social justice reform. But Maya never lost sight of her roots. Every weekend she returned to the park, sitting on her favorite bench or walking its winding paths. Sometimes she brought coffee and snacks for the volunteers maintaining the space. Other times she simply observed, taking comfort in the harmony of the community she had helped build. One crisp autumn morning, as Maya strolled through the park, she noticed a plaque mounted near the entrance. Curious, she walked closer and read the inscription. Dedicated to Maya Johnson, whose courage and determination transformed this space into a symbol of unity, equality, and hope. May it forever serve as a reminder that together we can create a brighter future. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she traced the engraved letters with her fingers. She hadn't known about the plaque beforehand. It was a surprise organized by Unity Forward and the Community Advisory Board. "This is too much," she whispered to herself, shaking her head in disbelief. Yet deep down she understood its significance. It wasn't just a tribute to her. It was a testament to what could be achieved when people came together to challenge injustice and strive for a better world. That evening, as Maya sat on her porch sipping tea, she reflected on the past year. From the humiliating encounter in the park to the viral headlines, the protests, the hearings, and finally the celebration, her life had changed in ways she could never have predicted. She had faced hatred and prejudice, but she had also discovered strength, resilience, and the boundless power of community. Looking out at the stars twinkling in the night sky, Maya smiled. She knew the fight against racism would require constant vigilance and effort. There would be more battles to wage, more hearts and minds to change, and more systems to dismantle. But she also knew she wasn't alone. Across the country, people inspired by her story were organizing rallies, starting conversations, and pushing for reforms in their own communities. Activists were using her case as a blueprint for holding institutions accountable. Children were learning about her journey in schools, growing up knowing that one person's courage could spark monumental change. Maya leaned back in her chair, feeling a profound sense of peace. The park she loved so dearly was thriving. Her community was stronger than ever, and her legacy was secure. Not because of what she owned, but because of what she had given. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Maya dreamed of a world where everyone felt safe, valued, and free. A world where parks weren't divided by prejudice, neighborhoods weren't scarred by inequality, and hearts weren't hardened by hate. It was a dream she believed was within reach, thanks to the countless individuals working tirelessly to make it a reality. And so, Maya Johnson's story became more than just a tale of triumph over adversity. It became a call to action, a reminder that even in the darkest moments there is always light waiting to break through. All it takes is one brave soul to ignite the spark.